So in this one, it says to complete the square. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set this up. X squared minus 8x plus our blank. And that equals negative 29 plus our blank. And so we're going to take this negative 8 and divide it by 2. That's going to give us negative 4. So it's going to be x minus 4 squared. So we know that these two couldn't be our answer. And then we're going to take this negative 4 and we're going to square it. And we're going to put that number, that's 16, and we're going to put that back up here, right? So negative 29 plus 16 is going to be, that's equal to a negative 13, but then we're going to move that 13 back to the other side. So this is going to be x minus 4 squared plus 13, right? So when we simplify this next one, we're going to go negative 7/8, and that's I to the 2/24, right? So we want to substitute the I to the 2/24 for one of our I to the 0, 1, 2, or 3, right? So we're going to take the 2/24 and we're going to divide it by 4. And when we do that, we get 56.0. So we're going to do negative 7/8 times I to the 0, right? Well, I to the 0 is 1, right? So it's going to be negative 7/8 times 1, and so the answer is going to be negative 7/8, which was B. Okay, so now also I wanted to go over the ticket out the door yesterday. So on this one, again, it says solve by completing the square. So this time we're solving. And I'm going to go ahead and do my plus my blank, and I'm going to move that 4 over to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So that's going to give me negative 24, again, plus my blank. So we're going to do our 8 divided by 2. That gives us 4. So we're putting that down into our parentheses. And then we're going to square that 4, and that's going to give us 16 up here. So that's going to be negative 24 plus 16. So that's going to give us negative 8, right? Now, we're going to take our square root again. Again, always remembering you put a plus or minus in front of that, right? So this is going to be x plus 4 equals plus or minus. Now I'm going to go ahead and factor this negative 8. That's the square root of negative 1. We know that 4 is a perfect square and it's a factor of 8, right? And then our 2. 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times negative 1 is negative 8. So now let's go ahead and keep going here. So this is 2, and that's I. So this is going to be plus or minus 2i square root of 2, right? Then what are we going to do with the 4? Yes, we're going to move it over and subtract it, right? So this is going to be x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus 2i square root of 2. All right, now, today we're going to go over the vertex form of the equation, of the quadratic equation, and we're going to solve some quadratics. So the vertex form of a quadratic equation is y is equal to x minus h squared plus k, where h and k is the vertex, which is the highest or lowest point of a quadratic equation when it's graphed. So in other words, if we had a graph like this, this would be our vertex, or like this, that would be our vertex, okay? Right there, the lowest point, okay? So that's what that means, the vertex, okay? So the way to convert from standard form to vertex form is by completing. And so that's what we're going to use, what we learned yesterday, to do what we're doing today, okay? So it says convert the equation from standard form to vertex form. So what we want to do is use our completing the square. So we're going to do our x squared plus our 4x plus blank, and it equals, we're going to move that 7, and we're putting 0 for that. Y'all see that? So we're going to move that 7, so it's going to be negative 7. Or plus our blank again, sorry. Okay, so what do? Take our 4 divided by 2, that gives us 2, so this is going to be x plus 2 squared, right? Then we square that 2, that's going to give us our 4, that's what we're putting back up here in these two blanks, right? So that's going to give us negative 7 plus 4, so that's a negative 3. Now, to put this in vertex form, we need to move that negative 3 back to the other side of the equation. And so we're going to say y is equal to x plus 2 squared plus 3, because now we're adding it to the other side, okay? So here's our other example. So this one again, I'm gonna put, basically I'm gonna remove this and put the 0 over here, right? Okay, so I got 5x squared minus 10x plus blank equals, and I'm going to do a negative 34 plus blank. Now here's the problem with this one. We got a 5 on the outside. Now I noticed that the 5 is a factor of both 5 and negative 10, so I'm going to factor out that 5. So that's going to be x squared minus 2x plus, we got our blank here still, right? And then that equals negative 34 plus our blank. Okay, so here's the key. So we're going to do our process pretty much the same way we have. Negative 2 divided by 2, that's our negative 1. So it's going to be x minus 1 squared, only we're going to bring down our 5 right here, right? So now watch. So we're putting our negative 1 squared here. So that's just 1, right? Okay, so, but when we move this to over here on the right, we have got to multiply this 5 times that 1. So it's going to be 5 times 1 over here, okay? So that's going to be negative 34 plus 5, right? Sorry, that's not very clear. Yeah, let me fix that. 5 times 1, okay? So that's going to be negative 29, right? So this is equal to negative 29. And then remember, we're going to move that back to the other side when we write it in vertex form. So this is going to be y is equal to 5 times x minus 1 squared plus 29. So speaking of vertex form, our vertex would be over here. It would be negative 2 comma 3, because remember, we always pull the opposite when it's in the parentheses. And over here, our vertex would be 1 comma 29. Okay? All right, so do these few tries and then come back to me when you're done. So this one's x squared plus 28x plus blank equals, again, negative 19 plus blank. So I'm going to do 28 divided by 2, that's 14. So I've got x plus 14 here, squared. And then I'm going to do 14 squared, and that's equal to 196. So I'm adding my 196 up here and my 196 here. And when I do that, I get that equals 177. So here again, when I write it in vertex form, it's going to be x plus 14 squared minus 177. So if I was to ask you what my vertex is, my h and k, which is x and y, it's negative 14, negative 177. Recalling again that we always change the sign of anything that's in the parentheses, okay? So our next you try. So this one's similar to the example 2, okay? So on this one, again, we're going to do negative 2x squared minus 24x plus blank equals what? 74 plus blank, right? Okay, so we're going to factor out that negative 2 again. So negative 2, so that's going to be x squared plus 12x plus our blank, okay? And that's going to equal 74 plus our blank again. So here, we're going to take our 12 and divide it by 2. So that's going to give us 6. So that's going to be, again, we got our negative 2 out here. So that's going to be x plus 6 squared, right? Then we're going to square that 6. 6 squared, that equals 36. So that's going to give us our 36 up here. But remember, when we do it over here, we got to go negative 2 times 36, right? So that's going to be 74 minus 72, which is 2. So that's going to be equal to 2. So when I move it over to the other side to say y is equal to, it's going to be negative 2x plus 6 squared minus 2. So my vertex would be negative 6, negative 2. All right, so now we're just going to practice solving. And we're going to do this because we have a quiz tomorrow. So this is kind of like your quiz review. So there's a couple ways that you could do. Number one, and I'm going to show you both. I could factor out a 2 first. That would give me 4x squared minus 9. That equals 0. So then I can actually factor this some more, can't I? Yes. So this would be 2 times 2x plus 3 and 2x minus 3. We're going to set each of these equal to 0, right? So we're going to do this one's equal to 0. That's the 2x plus 3. And the 2x minus 3 equals 0. So this would be negative 3 equals 2x. So divide both sides by 2. So x is equal to negative 3 over 2. Here, 2x equals 3. Divide both sides by 2 again. So this is x is equal to 3 over 2. Now the other way to do this, guys, is just to move that 18. So that would be 8x squared equals 18. Divide both sides by 8, right? And that's going to give you x squared equals, now let's reduce it. Isn't that 9 over 4, y'all? And again, when we take the square root of both sides of this, that's going to be plus or minus 3 over 2, because the square root of 9 is 3 and the square root of 4 is 2. So you can do it either way. All right, so this next one. Do you guys notice what I notice? Does it have a GCF? It does. Yep. So we're going to factor that out first. So it's going to be x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. So you could use your box, or you could recognize, again, like we did, that these are two perfect squares. Y'all notice that? So that would be x and 3, right? And if we do minus here, that because there's a minus right there, then this is x minus 3 squared. And how do I know that? Because if I divide this by 2, I still get that negative 3, don't I? So this is kind of like we did yesterday. Now this time, all we have to do is do the x minus 3 equals 0. So x is equal to 3. Okay, last one on this of these three. So we got 4x squared plus 8x plus, what is that? We're going to move it over here. That's a 64, isn't it, y'all? That equals 0? Ah, everything's divisible by 4, isn't it? So that's x squared plus 2x plus 16 equals 0. Now, I don't think there's any factors of 16, y'all, that if I multiply these two together, that is 16x squared. Don't think there's any factors of 16 that add up to be 2. So I'm going to use completing the square with this problem. So I'm going to do x squared plus 2x plus my blank, and that equals negative 16. Moved it to the other side, again, plus my blank. So I'm going to take my 2, divide it by 2. That's my 1. So that's going to be x plus 1 squared. Then I'm going to do 1 squared. That equals 1. So I'm putting that up here, 1 and 1. So that's going to be equal to what? Negative 15, right? Now we're going to take the square root of both sides. So this is going to be x plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 15. Don't think there's any other perfect square factor there, right? So this is going to be x plus 1 equals plus or minus I square root of 15. So then I'm just going to subtract, yes, subtract that 1. That seems to be the most common error I'm seeing. That's going to be minus 1 plus or minus I square root of 15. Okay, let's do these next three. So this one, looks to me like there's a GCF in this one, y'all. It's an x, right? So then I'm going to get 5x squared plus 8x minus 4 equals 0. I'm going to do my method here, and I'm going to get negative 20x squared, right? I'm going to bring down my, I'm going to do my drop-down method. So 5x squared, 5x squared. What are the two factors, y'all, of negative 20 that when added together give you a positive 8? So if you were to look at your t-chart, we're looking at negative 20x squared, and we're looking at 8. So obviously it's not 1 and 20, but what about 2 and 10? So if that's a positive 8x, y'all, then isn't this going to be positive, that negative and that positive? Yep, so we're going to put our x's here, right? So that means I've got a minus 2x and a plus 10x, right? So now we're looking at for GCFs. So over here, our only GCF is x, right? So that's going to be 5x minus 2. And over here, it's going to be 5x, right? So that's going to be x plus 2. So now we just set these equal to 0, right? So this is going to be 2 equals 5x. So divide both sides by 5. So this is going to be x is equal to 2/5. And this is going to be x is equal to negative 2. So there's our two answers, right? Okay. So let's do this next one. Maybe. It definitely made space. Okay. So, there's a couple ways to do this one again. I could try this right here. So the 169 is a perfect square. So this is 13x and 13x, right? And then plus and minus. And remember, because of this plus sign right here, this is going to be 8i and 8i. So once again, I can set both of these equal to 0. So this is going to be what? Negative 8i equals 13x divided by 13. So x is equal to negative 8 over 13i. And over here, 13x equals 8i divided by 13 again. So this is x equals 8 over 13i. The other way to do this, again, if you want to, is you could go 169x squared equals negative 64. Then divide both sides by the 169. So now you have x squared equals negative 64 over, sorry about that, y'all, negative 64 over 169. So we're going to take the square root of both sides, right? So here again, we got x equals, and we're going to distribute this, right? So this would have ended up being plus or minus the square root of negative 1, square root of 64, over the square root of 169. So the answers would have been the same, plus or minus 8. 8 over 13. 8 over 13i. Okay? So here's our next one. Sorry about that, y'all. So on this one, we've got 9x squared minus 18x minus 72 equals 0. Looks to me like all of these are divisible by 9, right? So that's x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. So I can factor this one, right? Or I could use completeness square, so you can use whichever one you want. I'm going to factor the thing, though, because it looks pretty easy to me. So this is x and x, right? What are the two factors of x? This would be negative 8x, right, y'all? If I multiply those together, what are the two factors of negative 8? That would be negative 4x and 2x, right? Divide this by x and that by x. It's going to be x minus 4 and x plus 2. Oh, I just realized something, y'all. I forgot an x over here. Good thing I caught it right there. I didn't bring down that x, y'all. Didn't bring down this x. Y'all see that right there? I didn't bring down that x. So when I solved this, I got another x that I got to set equal to 0. So there were 3 zeros for this problem. Just realized that. Look back over there, and it just came to me. So there was that other x. Don't forget that. If you brought down an x, then you're going to set it equal to 0 as well. Okay, so these two, again, we're going to set equal to 0. So this is going to be x equals 4 and x equals negative 2. Okay, so there's those two. And these were the answers here. All right, so the last 3, maybe. We're going to simplify this one. So we're going to do negative 1/4. I to the 36. So we got to find out what I to the 36 is. So we're going to divide 36 by 4. That's 9.0, right? So we're going to do negative 1/4 times I to the 0. What's I to the 0, y'all? Yes, negative 1/4 times 1. So this is negative 1/4. Okay, so I need you guys to do this substitution, substitution, substitution. Okay, so that you're not going to get this problem wrong. All right, here's the last one, or the next couple. 1/3. If you start dividing this by numbers, y'all, let's see, 441 on clear, 441. We know it's not divisible by 2, so 441 divided by 3 is 147. So 147, let's divide 147 by 3. That's 49. So, whoa, wait a minute, y'all. I see two perfect squares right here. Y'all see this? This is 9, and that's 49. So this would be the square root of 9 times. I think this is a perfect square, y'all. So let's take the square root of 441. So this is 1/3, and the square root of 441 is actually 21, y'all. So that's 1/3 of 21, which is, guess what? 7. Yep. All right, so what are we doing over here? Okay, I've told y'all over and over and over again that if you're doing this type of problem, then what I want you to do is write it in standard form first. That way you change the imaginary part and you remember to do that. So this is going to be 3 minus 5i over 3 minus 5i, right? 3 times 8 is 24. 8 times negative 5i is negative 40i. And then what I tell y'all to do is take the 3 and square it plus the 5 and square it. So that's going to be what? On the bottom, 24 plus 40i over 9 plus 25. That's 34, right? So it's going to be 24 over 34 plus 48 over 34. Sorry, 40. My bad, y'all. Can't read my own handwriting. That's pretty sad. That was a 40i right there, y'all. Plus 40i. So that's 40i. Now, question. Can this be reduced? Everything's divisible by 2, isn't it? So this would be 12 over 17 plus 20 over 17i. That's your final answer.